Good day, good people. How are you doing today? My name is Makeda Voletta, also known as the Body Scientist, and I'm live on my Instagram page. I will save it and repost it to my YouTube, so make sure you follow me in both places. In case you're unfamiliar with me, I have a background in exercise and sports science, nutrition science, and currently working on a Master of Science in Medical Cannabis Science in Therapeutics. And I've committed my life to studying all the ways that we can take our body to its highest level. Okay, so I'm a health science nut. Okay, health science nerd. Let me say that. Okay, health science nerd, and I'm very passionate about, bringing the body into alignment naturally. Okay, because it only happens naturally. It's not going to happen with the fake shit. Okay, so I want to talk about fibroids today. Okay, I want to talk about women's womb health. Okay, fibroids. So those of you who have been following me throughout the years, you have seen, there's different phases, in the past 20 years of things that I've focused on. And from about 2007 until maybe 2014, I was heavily, maybe 2007 to let's say 2016-ish, okay? I was heavily focused on on womb health, okay? The vaginal health, womb health. And I studied a lot on my own, but I also had an amazing, at first I started off teaching a class called Sensual Strength Training to women, where you were using crystal and stone eggs, okay, that some people call them yoni eggs. When I first started working with them in 2005, they were called jade eggs because they were made from jade. And then on my own, I started to experiment with different stones. I started to teach women. Some people started calling them yoni eggs. I call them nani eggs now, okay? Because nani stands for puanani, which is the Hawaiian word for sacred flower. I like to stick with my indigenous language, so I call them nani eggs, right? But nani eggs, yoni eggs, jade eggs, they're crystal stone eggs that women have worked with throughout the world. And I was supposed to write a book on this years ago because I'm a researcher and there's a lot of things that I uncover that other people don't. So I was going to write a book on this years ago. It's time for me to get my books written. But anyhow, I taught this class, and the class was partially women working with these eggs in their vaginal canal to get not just strengthen their vaginal muscles, but have more control, more sensitivity. It helps to dispel trauma, helps to prepare for childbirth, recover from childbirth, a whole bunch of things, right? And my class involved that along with teaching women how to strength train, okay? Why it's important, how to do it correctly, because that also affects your hormones. Our muscles are endocrine organs, and so is fat, okay? And so strength training can help balance your hormones, increases testosterone, but then when we move our hips and we have orgasms, that increases our estrogen, right? And the other part of the class was using dances from the African diaspora, particularly in the Americas and the Congo, that involved intense hip movements. So dances from Brazil, from Haiti, from Colombia, from Dominican Republic, from Atlanta, whatever, that involve intense hip movements to get women to connect to their hips, which is important for childbirth, is important for sex, it's important for your health, okay? Most of our blood flow runs through our hips. So that's what my course was about. Then around 2013, I met an amazing woman named Pakazani, okay? Every woman should know her. Every woman should follow her, okay? I don't know. I'm very picky about who my teachers are. I'm very picky about who I endorse. I do not jump on bandwagons, okay? I do not jump on bandwagons. All of the Afro-American people who are so-called Afrocentric, which I have to put in quotes, and then they on the Sebi. I'm not going to call him Dr. Sebi because he wasn't a doctor of anything. He wasn't even a Bush doctor. He was a total fraud, okay? But people jumping on the Sebi bandwagon, the Layla Africas, frauds, and more frauds. They were sickly. They were fraudulent. They looked sick. I did a video a few years ago on why Sebi was a fraud. I'll do it again if I need to because I don't respect him. I never respected him. No, okay, at all. Now, the Afrocentric Afro-Americans who jump on those bandwagons, I never jumped on those bandwagons, okay? I'm very picky. Luckily, I'm smart and I have good critical thinking skills, something a lot of people lack, okay? So Pakazani, she is a Mexican-American woman who's in Long Beach. She's also known as Indigimama. If you want to find her on Instagram, it's Indigimama or Indigisquela, okay? Because she has a whole school now. But it was from her, okay, that I learned about the importance of the placement of the uterus, okay? I remember in, 2011, okay, and it's not that I even want to talk about this a lot to bring it up, but this is part of my story. 2011, I gave birth to a son who did not make it. And after that, I remember my uterus just felt like it wasn't in the right place, okay? My body felt off. And like back then, nobody was talking about these things. It was not, but I just knew like my body, I'm very connected to my body. It didn't feel right. And I learned about Mayan abdominal massage. There's a woman who teaches Mayan abdominal massage. I forget her name now. I can't remember. But she had practitioners, and that resonated with me that, okay, the uterus needs to be perfectly centered or it can cause a lot of issues. But her practitioners were all older white women, and it just didn't sit with me because it's a practice that came from Mayans, and I'm like, I'd rather study with indigenous people. Then I came across Pankazani, okay, Mexican-American woman from Long Beach, California, and she was teaching a class called Matriz y Concha, okay. I was actually in Long Beach. I was in LA visiting my childhood best friend. Pankazani was doing a workshop, Matriz y Concha, okay. Matriz y Concha, that means womb and vagina. Matriz is matrix, the womb, okay. The woman's womb is the matrix. Then you have concha. Concha is like the conch shell, okay? What does the conch shell look like? Vagina, right? So the class Matriz y Concha is about the woman, the vagina. And she taught about how in Mesoamerican medicine, like Western medicine says that if a woman's uterus is tilted to the left or tilted to the right or tilted back, that's fine and normal. And she's like, according to Mesoamerican medicine, that's absolutely not true. It's not fine or normal, okay? Just because it's common doesn't mean that it's normal, okay? And there's a lot of consequences, negative health consequences a woman can suffer when her uterus is not perfectly centered, okay? And she also taught vaginal steaming, which in the Mesoamerican Mexican tradition is called Bajos, okay? But every culture had some type of vaginal steaming. Some people call it yoni steaming, but every culture has some history of it. And castor oil packs, okay, castor oil packs, which are critical. If a woman has any type of cyst, fibroids, tumors, growths, scar tissue, and it's not just for women. Anybody can use that on any part of their body where they have those issues, okay? I have a video where I talk about why castor oil packs should be a part of your healthcare, self-care regimen because it has so many applications. I did a YouTube video on that. You can go back and check it. But she was teaching about castor oil packs and also using clays, right? And I just really aligned with her in a lot of ways because, like, for me, I don't wear heels, okay? I'm anti-heels. Unless somebody's paying me money, I'm not putting on no heels. But I didn't wear heels because I knew it was bad for your knees. I always thought about longevity. I always thought about how I want to age. I always thought, like, because women in my family who wore a lot of heels in the 60s and the 50s and the 70s, I don't know, they all had bad knees and backs. And so I'm a dancer. I always want to be able to dance. I want my body to be intact. It's not just about looks, it's about function. I don't want bad knees and a bad back and all this stuff. So I didn't do heels because I know it's not good for you, right? But she was anti-heels because she said it's bad for your uterus. That women wearing heels can dislocate her uterus. And I'm like, wow, there's certain exercises that I didn't teach as a trainer because I am a trainer. I'm a strength and conditioning coach. I'm a USA Olympic weightlifting coach. I have a degree in exercise science and sports science. One of the reasons that I'm very picky about the exercises that I give people. I'm not a regular trainer, okay? Regular personal trainers, they just work out for numbers, lose some weight, look a certain way. A strength and conditioning coach, we are geared more towards function, okay? Function, not just, let's just lose weight. No, let's run faster. Let's fix these. You're only as strong as your weakest link. So what are the weakest links? Let's strengthen them. So we can increase performance and decrease injury. So strength and conditioning is more about performance than just a look, right? So our approach to the exercises that we use, I look for the most efficient exercises. There's a lot of exercises you can do for your abs, but how many of them, what are the most efficient ones? What are the most efficient ones for your glutes, for your hand? That's my approach, okay? So there were exercises I didn't give my clients because I felt like they didn't make sense, I didn't think they were efficient. They didn't have a purpose. They didn't make sense. And my friend Pankazani, She didn't give these exercises, same exercises, but she said, oh, it could dislocate a woman's uterus, okay, if she does these exercises. Especially if she doesn't have a certain level of internal strength developed around these muscles. And so we did videos about this, like 2013, that's 10 years ago now, damn. We did videos because she and I taught retreats and stuff in Costa Rica. I'm not going to get super into that because I'm going to get back to the fibroid thing. But she's the truth, okay? And I could do a whole video, and maybe I will, just about why I love this woman so much and why she's the truth. I don't know anybody like her. I don't know anybody that has her skills. And you have got to know this woman, okay? So I studied with Pankajani for some years. I took her Matriz y Concha class a few times. I took her Sobadas. She has another class called Sobadas. Sobadas is womb massage, okay? It is the Mesoamerican womb massage. And I always call her a chiropractor. A womb chiropractor is what I call her. Because she will palpate. In her Sobadas class, she teaches women how to palpate, how to know, like, okay, where's your uterus supposed to be, your ovaries, your fallopian tubes, your bladder, and how to feel them, how to feel where they are, how to know if they're in the right place, okay, so where they're supposed to be, so how to feel them, what does your ovaries feel like, and what does your uterus feel like, and how do you locate them, where are they supposed to be, and if they're not in the right place, how do you move them into the right place? So that's what she would teach in her Sabadas class. But she also would do one-on-one sessions with people, okay? She's worked on me. I have not only seen her work on other people, but I have assisted her on, there are many people that I assisted her working on. And in watching her, I never saw her work the same way. I never saw her work with any woman the same way twice, okay? And she does things that chiropractors do, like closing of the hips. Acerrar las caderas. Acerrar las caderas. That is the closing of the hips. It's another class that she has, right? Talking about closing of the hips. And this is for after childbirth. Women's hips are open. They need to be closed, okay? This goes beyond the fajas and stuff like that, right? So, a lot of things that she does, chiropractors do. And she told me one time she worked with a chiropractor, and they're like, oh, we do these things. I have seen her do things. I'm just trying to tell you, like, she's not the kind of person that can just train anybody to do what she does, okay? I can't do what she does. She's like a high level, okay? And she's also an herbalist, but she's the type of herbalist that can communicate with plants, okay? True herbalists can communicate with plants, and I've seen her do it. I've seen her do it in Costa Rica. I've seen her do it right here in the streets of Chicago, okay? So one of the reasons why she says Chicago is one of her favorite cities, even more so than New York, my hometown, was because, she said she loved the fact that there was so many herbs. Yeah, she is a gift. There's so many rarely usable herbs growing in the streets of Chicago. They don't tell you that. They only want to tell you people get shot. But Chicago is a beautiful city. Absolutely beautiful city. Chicago has my heart, okay? But there's a lot of flowers and herbs growing here. And she said in LA, the herbs are for show. They're not really usable, right? Somebody just asked me for her handle. I did say it earlier, but her handle on Instagram is Indigimama, okay? Indigimama, which is INDGIEMAMA, Indigimama. I'll put it below. And the other one is Indigiscuela, okay? Because she has an online school. When I met this woman, she had 2 kids. Now she has 4. She gave birth to 3 of them by herself. Like, she didn't have a midwife, okay? Like, she's the truth. When I tell you she's the truth, she's the truth, all right? And she's absolutely hilarious and ratchet. I love her, okay? I will fight somebody for this woman, okay? So, going back, yes. So, I would see her. I remember one time watching her. Thank you, Het, for posting her. I remember watching her, like, okay, when we were in DC, this is like a decade ago, and she worked on 3 women, right? And I'm assisting her. And one of the women said she had back pain, right? And so before Pakistani worked on her, and when she got up, the woman was like, oh, my back pain is gone. But the next 2 women didn't mention back pain, but after Pakistani worked on them, and it's like a 2-hour session, okay? After Pakistani worked on them, and they got up, they said their back pain was gone, that they had for years, that they had since they gave birth to their child. And these women, and as a trainer, I'm going to tell you that women don't complain that much. There are a lot of women who will walk around, especially mothers, with extreme discomfort and pain from stuff that has happened to their body from childbirth, and they don't complain, okay? And it's just, so I remember thinking, damn, like that's when I learned that the misplacement of the uterus can cause back pain. And as a trainer, whenever I saw anybody with back pain, I never thought it could be, oh, her uterus is out of place. I always was like, okay, I'm going to give her exercises to strengthen her back muscles, to strengthen her ab muscles, to strengthen this whole area that supports your back, because your abs are also supporting your back, as are the muscles in your back. So that was always my approach to it. I didn't know that, oh, you could have back pain because your uterus is out of place, okay? So these are the things that I learned from being around her, right, and studying with her. And so these traditions, like even in childbirth, it's like right after, in Mesoamerican traditional cultures, practices, it was right after childbirth that they would reposition a woman's uterus, either immediately after childbirth or like 30 days later, okay? But this is very important, the perfect placement of the uterus. Okay, so this fibroid conversation is something that I kind of stayed away from for a long time, but also it kind of freaked me out, right? And now it's on my mind even more again. And the reason is, and I'm going to tell you, I'm not a fibroid expert, but I'm going to tell you what I know, and I'm going to tell you certain observations, okay? So when I was 18, my mother got a hysterectomy, and I remember when I was like a teenager, when I was a kid, my fifth grade graduation, my mother bled through her outfit, okay, because her period was so heavy. And as a kid, I remember my mother used to always talk negatively about her period. She hated it. My aunt, my godmother, used to always say to my mom, you shouldn't talk like that about your period. You shouldn't talk negatively. Now, and I agree with that, right? But I do understand if you have such agonizing menstrual cycles that you're bleeding down your leg, which is what was going on with my mom, it's hard to not be negative about that. It's hard to not be like, I hate this shit, right? So I get that. Now, my mother, the doctors told her, oh, you're done having kids, just take your uterus out, right? And my mom did it, no issue, right? And I remember seeing that and thinking, I remember, her coming home and recovering, and I was in the 12th grade, and I thought, I don't want to go through that. Like, I don't want. So, like, I made a conscious effort as a young person, as a 17, 18-year-old, to take care of myself to my best ability so I could age as best as possible. And that these things that people make it seem like, oh, it just happens because you're old, or just happens because you're older, I never believed that. I'm like, there's a reason for everything. You don't, it's not like you don't just live life and it's some inevitable thing that these things happen to you. So I became conscious then of just really learning about womb care. Okay. And so that led me to the eggs. And, when I first started working with the nani eggs, I just, from my background in exercise physiology, I knew, oh, wow, my friend Het in Detroit, one of my favorite people on earth, who I hope I see you, lady, in Detroit this weekend. But she said a friend of her husband, okay, used hemp and coconut oil with a nani egg, and 5 of her 9 fibroids were gone on her next doctor visit. Wow, are you serious, Het? Het, I don't know if you're busy right now or whatever, but if you're not busy right now and you don't mind being on camera, I would love to invite you to come up in this conversation with me if you want, okay? So just want to let you know, because you're a dope person. I think you could add to this conversation as well. But that's amazing. She put hemp and coconut oil on a nani egg, a yoni egg, and 9 different. Wow, thank you for sharing that. I know for me, oh, okay, I'm gonna bring you in. Let's see. I tried to bring you in. I don't know what happened. Oh, hey,
Greetings.
how are you doing?
I'm good. I'm great. Thanks.
Good. I'm still talking, but we can bounce back because I know you can add. So the thing with the eggs, right? That you mentioned that, I was going to say that for me, my background in exercise science, I just understood the importance of strengthening, muscle. So when I first started working with the egg, I wasn't thinking about trauma and all these things. I was thinking, okay, it makes sense. Strengthen my vaginal muscles, get more control. But then as I started teaching women, I started seeing that, I started to realize that a lot women had a lot of trauma. And I went through a doula training back in I think it was 2010, and my doula teacher told us a lot of women, their sexual trauma and stuff can come up in childbirth, and she really made us aware of that. And so at that point, that's when I realized, oh, the egg could help with that, with childbirth too, with just helping a woman dispel trauma before she gives birth. And so I always thought of fibroids also having a trauma link with Black women, because it's so common in us. And I thought, well, it also could be the, ancestral trauma that we have. And so I felt like eggs could help in that way. So it's interesting that you said that about Peru Spring. And if any point you want to share any stories that you have with that, feel free. But the perms, that is something that has been highly linked to the fibroids, is the relaxers. Of course, relaxers. She started locking her hair when I was 17. But at that point, she was 49 years old. So she had a perm all those years. And, my hair has been locked now for 23 years, but I had a perm as a little girl until I was 18, right? So most Black women, there's not many of us that didn't have a bunch of perms in our hair for years, and some women still do. And so you see how common the fibroids are in Black women, and that's also a part of it, right? So before I go on, you want to share anything about your eggs or people that experience working with the eggs?
Well, yeah, I was just sharing to one of our friends, and it's not somebody I heard of. This happened directly. A friend of ours, she was using an amethyst egg, and she said she dipped it in the oil before she put it in, and before she inserted it. And she was diagnosed with 9 fibroids. And she said her next doctor visit, when she went back, I don't remember the time frame. This happened some years ago. And the doctor was like, well, now I only see 4, So the doctor was like, well, what did you do? And she explained to him and let that person know that, I used the oil, the hemp oil and the coconut oil that Baba made up. And she said, that's all I did with the amethyst egg. And she said they felt they were gone. The doctor couldn't account for the full 9 that he had originally diagnosed her with. So I just wanted to make sure I shared that. That was her experience. And I was glad that she even shared that with us to let us know what happened, because, we need to share experiences so we can see and find out because everything is not going to work the same for everybody. It depends on whatever your life is and what your body needs. So I just think that that's important, and I'm appreciative for you to share that, because I have a friend who just shared with me that when her mother passed away, the day her mother passed away, she woke up at the same time her mother was diagnosed as being deceased, took her last breath. And she said she woke up in a like this, and she said she's been having fibroidal bleeding since her mother passed away. And so I just shared with her that same story to let her know that that's something that worked with a friend of ours. But she also has other trauma, a relationship trauma. And I said, maybe, when I was sitting there talking to her, I kind of felt her mother, I was very close to her mother as well. I felt her mother share the egg story with her and let her know about the fibroid challenges that have been rectified by, another sister. So we got to share our stories.
No, and now that you're saying this, you're just making me just be like, we need to revive this. I need to come back to Detroit. We need to start doing this again, because that's the reason why when I taught my sexual strength training class, why I did it in a group of women.
Yes.
We need to share our stories, because every woman has different experiences, and the thing is that we have different reasons why we might have fibroids. You know what I'm saying? Just like with any health problem, like with cancer. Some people got cancer because of severe trauma. Some people get heart disease because their heart is so broken. Yep. Other people's eating too much canola oil. You know what I'm saying? And as a healthcare practitioner, and especially a holistic one, people love to throw the word around, but I look at all of those things. And so that you sharing that story with your friend makes complete sense, because there are physical manifestations from trauma. You know what I'm saying? And so the crystals, they, first of all, the shape of an eggs naturally absorb energy and transform energy. And then you have the each crystal has, metaphysical properties. Mm-hmm. That, you know what I'm saying? So that, I feel like is thank you for sharing that. Thank you. Really, because I do think that's a huge piece as well, because in me working with women, I started to see that sexual molestation is very common. It almost seems like if you weren't molested as a child, you're a minority. Um, and then you also have women with birth trauma. Okay,
Yeah.
women get trauma at childbirth too, and studies have shown that it's just as traumatic to a woman as being raped. So these things stay in our body, and the eggs can definitely help. The Sorry, somebody said something. Yeah, the eggs can definitely help with that. And the dancing. Okay, you're also a dancer. You know, the Afro-based dances, the Congo-based dances that involve a lot of manipulation of the hips and shaking and gyrating, which is one of the things that I loved when I came to Detroit. You first of all, you're one of the most amazing dancers I've ever seen. So I gotta get back. And you raised a beautiful daughter, and I gotta in her grownness. But no, but when I came to Detroit and you guys, well, the dance company was called Bambooty, right?
Yeah, Bambooty featuring Ife, yes.
Featuring Ife. The Ife was the one drummer. He was like 6 people.
Yes.
A group of beautiful black women. All of you were mothers. All of you were super beautiful and educated, and you guys were shaking your waist and your hips and gyrating and all of that. And it was really Congolese dance. It was very Congo. And there's a lot of healing properties in that. But then you have black people in America who act like, oh, she's just shaking her ass. She's disrespecting herself. And there's healing properties in that.
Strengthen our wounds. That's why it's done to help strengthen the body and the abs and the womb space. You know, it's very important. Yep.
Yeah. So yeah, and it helps. When something traumatic happens to us, you know, we can store that in our energy fields, and we can even pass it on to our offspring. So, and women, because we are the ones who get pregnant and have to carry the baby. So, like, if you have trauma that you haven't dealt with, that's just in your energy fields, it can go on to future generations, and then they have problems, and they don't even know why they have these problems. And so, the dancing and the gyrating is huge for resetting your energy fields, shaking that stuff off of you. You know, so that also is super duper important. I really believe in going back to our ancestral practices.
Yep. That's why we got so much disarray, because we have left and aborted those practices, and that's why they were kept from us, because they knew what they were for. And also, I had another sister who was dealing with fibroids. We went immediately and looked up the diet. You know, and if you get the fibroids removed, you can't go back into those thoughts that put you there in the first place. You have to relieve yourself and find some way to unearth the things that the mental mind state and the things that were feeding the fibroids as well.
Yep, we do. No, and it's all of those things. It's all of those things. You know, like, I mean, and I look at all those things because, like, my mother's sisters, a lot of them had different womb issues, and I look and see that their mother died. My mother was 4 years old when her mother died. My mom was the youngest of 7, but her other siblings, they were 12, they're 14. That's a terrible time to lose your mom. But my grandmother, you know, my mother's mother, my grandmother Voletta, she gave birth to 7 kids at home with no problem. So it's like, okay, so how did that happen? And then the next generation, they're having these issues. And I kind of think, I mean, I don't know, but I'm like, it could be from the loss of their mother affecting them in that way, you know? And so to me, it's just really important to, like, because my mom was 4, so she didn't really remember her mother like that. But her other siblings, other sisters, they were really traumatized. And the way that people deal with that a lot of times, especially kids, they just kind of go numb because, you know, and then when you do that and you're just like, oh, I'm going to, you know, like, you just kind of block it out. That can leave imprints in your energy fields that affect your health for sure. And
I just wanted to share, Makeda, another experience. When my mother passed away, I felt like my yoni went with her.
Oh, wow.
It was really something. I felt a absence, if you will. And so, and you know, sometimes I would have thoughts and things, and I was like, wait a minute, I was like, you got eggs, you know, because I had not been using my eggs for a while, because I gave my eggs and put my eggs in my mother. She kept a basket in her bed once she got diagnosed with ALS, and I kept those eggs in that basket in her bed, and she was very receptive of that. You know, my mother's like, girl, what are you doing now? you know, but I put those eggs, especially, what is the one, the pink rose quartz? I had that one put in her basket, and some of the other ones that I had to just be with her while she slept at night, you know. So, yeah, and Lexi is saying sometimes folks don't talk about their trauma and it stores in the womb. That's the greatest place that we put a lot of things, you know. So just had to reestablish a relationship with my mother, you know, with myself, getting back to myself. And because I have a partner and everything, you know, the relationship was very challenged and changed at that point. But because we talked and I talked it out, you know, we kept the communication going with it. So, you know, but I'm working on, you know, working on getting that relationship back renewed. And so, yeah, so, you know, we got to make sure that we have our sister circles like this right here, just an exchange of two, and then have other sisters join up so that we can talk and help each other through the healing process, because it is possible. Everything is healable.
No, you're right. I agree with you, Heck. Yeah, I agree with you. Everything is healable, and you know, I had to, I had to. This whole fibroid conversation came up again because, first of all, like I've always done so much to prevent it. Like when I learned about castor oil packs, I would do them, but like you said, you hadn't used the eggs for a while, so I hadn't done castor oil packs for a while. But I do know any woman who has fibroids or cysts or growths or scar tissue should be doing castor oil packs. But 2 years ago, I had a bunch of traumatic stuff that happened to me, okay? And in 2021. Now, one of them, and I didn't talk about publicly because a lot of people didn't know I had a sister, but my sister passed away, among other things. And I just saw like my body just changed. And I was like, what the hell? I don't recognize I didn't understand what happened. And I'm very much connected to what's going on. And I just felt like it was just the trauma and the stress of everything in 2021 that I didn't even really talk about, because it's like you feel like life goes on. You got to pay bills. You got to go to work. You can't really. So that's how I felt. And then I didn't want like family members and stuff to worry about me. And so you're acting like you're okay. And I feel like it definitely manifested in my body. So it's like, you know, so then I started to wonder, like, I mean, I don't have symptoms of fibroids, but my mom had them. And even though I've been doing things to prevent them, like, could I have them? You know what I'm saying? And that started to be in my mind and started to worry me, because when you look at the stats, it's like they say that 75% of women will have fibroids at some point in their life. And that, and in Black women, it's like, you know, 60% of us have really bad ones. And so so I was with a friend of mine, somebody that I know that came to visit, and she started talking to me about this. I didn't know that she was dealing with that, but she started to tell me so many women, so many Black women that she knew were getting hysterectomies. And she's like, it's happening so much that I think they're selling our uteruses. And I was just like, and they were trying to get her to do it, and she was against it. But I'm like, really? Because I knew that was happening back in the day. I didn't know that still in 2023 that so many women were getting hysterectomies. And they act like, oh, you don't need your uterus. You don't have kids anymore. You don't need it. But your uterus is not just there for having kids. Even if you don't have any kids or you're done having kids, whatever, you still need your uterus. Like, it's important. And when you remove your uterus, the other internal organs can start to fall down into that space. It can cause breathing problems, all kinds of issues, hormonal issues, all kinds of issues. And so the fact that the medical community is acts like, oh, you don't need that, let's just take it out, you know. And so that really bothered me. And she started to tell me, and I started talking to her about the castor oil pack. She didn't know about that, the clays and stuff. And she's like, you know, she's like, hold on, somebody said, oh yeah, your mom got a hysterectomy because she kept getting fibroids. Yeah, you know, that's the thing. They make it seem like, oh, just take your uterus out. You know, that's the thing with Western medicine. I feel like surgery should be a life or death situation with everything. And if you don't address the issue, this is another thing. If you cut the fibroids out and you don't deal with why you have them, they're only going to come back. That's it. They're only going to come back. And yes, thank you for mentioning the sanitary napkins and tampons. Oh my God. Sanitary napkins, tampons, condoms, all of those things that are going inside of women's vaginas are filled with toxic chemicals. Okay. Now there are companies who are making non-toxic condoms, but when people, just like with food, when people say something is non-toxic or not, I like to look at how did you make this and what are the ingredients? Because people can say that and they still be using fucked up shit. But these chemicals, they are, first of all, our skin is very absorbent. You shouldn't put anything on your skin that you can't eat. But the vagina, the penis, the mouth, the anus, those are mucous membranes. Mucous membranes are even more absorbent. So you're putting, they put crazy chemicals on these tampons, crazy chemicals on the pads, and then crazy chemicals on the condoms. Yeah. Hopefully you can hear me. Somebody just called me. Okay, perfect. Yeah, and so now women are absorbing that too. And I'm looking at uterine cancer even. Apparently the perms, because I remember my aunt telling me this too back in the day about perms, how it's gonna go, those chemicals go right into your scalp and they cause a problem. Now I'm like 9 years old, like whatever, she's just being dramatic. But it's true. Like the scalp is also, your brain is right there and it's very permeable to chemicals. So you're putting these crazy, I remember getting a perm and your head is burning and shit. That shit is toxic, so toxic. And so all those things, like the chemicals that people are using in their vagina, on their scalp, all of that stuff matters. And there's a huge connection with that in uterine cancer as well. Uterine cancer is increasing. You got ovarian cancer, all these different cancers and issues of the reproductive organs. It has to do with your diet, but it has a lot to do too with the chemicals that you're exposing yourself to and that you're putting on your genitals. So people need to be very conscious of that. And also the misplacement of the uterus, because the thing with fibroids, it also is like a imbalance of hormones, estrogen, too much estrogen and stuff like that. And one thing that Pakistani taught me too was that when your uterus is not perfectly centered, like if a woman's uterus is like tilted to the right and is putting a certain amount of pressure on the ovaries, it can cause, and she explained it really well, but she explained about how there could be a buildup of estrogen because of that, and not reaching the brain. It was something that she explained that made sense to me. Okay, but basically the point was, if your uterus is not perfectly centered, it can cause you to have hormonal imbalances because of that. And so there are women who, their fibroids, their cysts, and all those things are also due to the uterus being misplaced. So that's another thing that's important. So we talked about the perms, talked about the trauma, the uterus placement. Of course, people want to avoid processed foods, and even with alcohol, like I do drink alcohol, but like beer and wine in particular, they have a lot of pesticides in it a lot of times. And so somebody who might be drinking that a lot, that feeds pesticides, sugar, grains, those feed tumors, whether they're cancerous tumors or non-cancerous tumors, they feed them. So if you have fibroids, you definitely want to decrease your sugar intake. I mean, nobody should be eating a lot of sugar, period, because it feeds cancer cells. It's just bad, right? But sugar and grains and flour and all that stuff, that's going to feed it. Now, some people try to say that meat and pork causes it. I would only agree with that if you're talking about commercial food industry meat, where it's injected with a bunch of hormones, because it's the same as like the pesticides. But if you're eating good quality pork, I don't believe that. And the reason why I'm going to say that is because, first of all, if you look around the world, there's a lot of pork eating societies. Like Asians eat a bunch of pork, Europeans, you go to Italy, the Mediterranean, Spain, France. Okay, sure. Thank you for coming in. Thank you. I appreciate it. Your 2 cents. But all those countries, the Polynesian islands, they all eat a lot of pork, and they don't all have a problem with fibroids, right? And then in the American South, or even Haiti and Puerto Rico and Cuba, like Colombia, all those countries eat a lot of pork, but there's not a fibroid epidemic. So I don't feel like you can just, and pork is high in vitamin D, okay? And fibroids have also been linked to a vitamin D deficiency, just like everything else, okay? And vitamin D there are vitamin D receptors on like every cell in our body. And vitamin D is really a hormone, actually, okay? It's not a vitamin. Vitamin stands for vital amine, an amine group. Vitamin D actually is not an amine, okay? It's not a vitamin, it's a hormone. And it binds to receptors all over our body and helps to modulate a lot of different things. And everything that Black people suffer from, diabetes, hypertension, all linked to vitamin D, okay, deficiencies. Even there are a lot of Black women in preterm labor who are Black women seem to be also more susceptible to preterm labor. That has to do with vitamin D deficiencies, but it also has to do with the bacterial balance, the type of bacterial strains that's in a woman's vaginal canal, okay? And so, and Black women tend to have more of a certain strain. So the thing is I think that people should be always getting the best quality food they can get. You want to try to get animal foods and plant foods that are not from the commercial food industry. You want to get things that are non-toxic, that come from, that where they're not using a bunch of chemicals as much as possible. Same thing with beauty products, right? I wear makeup sometimes. I don't wear makeup every day. When I do wear it, it's minimal. It's very hard to find makeup that doesn't have a bunch of toxic chemicals in it, but that stuff is also a problem. And so one of the things that I do to counteract that is I use clays, okay? Whether it be bentonite clay or red clays, they can pull the toxins out of your system. So using clays on a regular basis, and the castor oil packs, I did a video on that where it's like you take a fabric, you soak it in castor oil, and you put it over whatever area you want to use it for. We're talking about the womb right now. Then you would put it over this area. You put a hot water bottle on top, okay, and let it stay there for like an hour. When I do it, I fall asleep. It's very deeply, it's really comforting. It usually puts you to sleep. And that castor oil penetrates deep, okay, and it helps to break up scar tissue, tumors, cysts, any kind of growths, okay? And it also stimulates the lymphatic system to move all that stuff. Castor oil is very, very important. And so, for me, it's like I feel like you have to listen to your body. You have to pay attention to what your body's telling you. And lately, I've been seeing a lot of things about tummy tucks and stuff like that. Like, yeah, it is super relaxing, the castor oil packs. Just the sound of a tummy tuck, it just makes me hurt. It don't sound right, okay? It just don't sound right. And your abs are major muscles, okay? Major. So to think about the fact that women are cutting their abs, okay, and having a doctor pull it down, and then they have to recreate a navel. Oh my God! First of all, it looks crazy. It looks weird. Like tummy tuck abs look weird, but that's a major surgery. And every time you cut yourself open, you are going to have scar tissue. And what scar tissue does is it pulls everything around it. Whatever organs are around it, it's going to pull it towards it. So if a woman has any kind of abdominal surgery, C-section, tummy tuck, or any other surgery somebody might have an abdominal for whatever reason, you're going to have scar tissue. Now, that scar tissue is pulling the organs towards it, so it's pulling your organs out of place, okay? So you don't want to do that. Now, if I think about it, there are women who've had C-sections and they've had tummy tucks. That's a lot of cutting open your abs. Like, there's nothing good about that at all, okay? And then when I think about that, and then I think about the prevalence of fibroids, I'm like, damn, that means that there are women who've had C-sections, then if they have surgery for fibroids, they're getting surgery for fibroids. Now, what if a woman had a C-section, then she gets a tummy tuck, and then she finds out she got fibroids and she wants to get surgery for that? You getting your abs cut open that many times, that is terrible, okay? That's terrible. To me, surgery should be preserved for when you really, really, really need it, period. Because it's always traumatic and stressful on your body to be cutting it open, okay? So, also, and I was saying, like, phthalates are endocrine disruptors. And phthalates, they are in plastics, okay? So, you don't want to store your food in plastic. You want to store your food in glass. You don't want to cook with Teflon, okay? I don't cook with non-stick Teflon pans. I cook with cast iron, okay? Because cooking with Teflon, that's a whole other thing. You can cause all kinds of issues with your reproductive system and cause birth defects and all types of stuff. But people be using the Teflon non-stick stuff, be storing your food in plastic. People be spraying air freshener. They got the plugins in their house. They got the artificial air freshener in the car. You putting on makeup every day. You know what I'm saying? Using regular lotion. You are exposing yourself to so many toxic chemicals at once. That also, because those chemicals are cancer causing and they're tumor inducing, okay? Because basically a tumor is just cells that won't stop dividing. Sometimes they can be cancerous, sometimes they're not. But these things feed that, right? So you really want to really be focused on eliminating that stuff as much as possible, okay? And I made a video years ago talking about what your menstrual cycle can tell you about you and what's going on with you. You might want to check that out. I'll post it below on my YouTube. But there are a lot of women. I'm hearing stories about young girls, you know, from friends of mine, young girls who are like 22, and they have debilitating menstrual cycles where they cannot get up. Okay, they are in so much pain. They are killed over in pain that they can't even work at home. They can't do anything. That is not normal. Okay, let me tell you right now, any woman who's having menstrual cycles like that, that's not normal. If you are bleeding to the point where blood's running down your leg, that's not normal. And something is not right. Something is not right with your uterus, your womb, and you really, you know, need to dig deep and figure out what that is. And when you go to a Western medical doctor, they might tell you, oh, yeah, your uterus is tilted. That's okay. But it's not okay. Okay. And I'm here to tell you that that can be corrected. Okay. But the doctor's not going to be the one to tell you that. All right. Um, and yeah, I mean, I appreciate my friend Het for coming into the conversation. She's somebody who I really admire. And I met her back in 2009 when I was teaching my sensual strength training class, and I came to Detroit to teach it. And back then I was traveling around the country teaching the class a lot. I haven't been teaching it lately, but I feel like it's time to, you know, bring it back and bring it back with other elements, because in doing that work, I started to learn, you know, a lot of women are dealing with a lot of womb issues, okay? And so, and it's just totally ignored, and like, you know, the surgery and stuff is not the answer. You don't want to take out your uterus, because getting a hysterectomy can cause other issues as you age, okay? Avoid the grains, avoid the processed foods, the sugars, the pesticide-filled beer and wine. If you're going to drink beer and wine, try to get it from another country, from small batches. Your uterus placement can affect your hormones, okay? And scar tissue can put your uterus out of place as well. Trauma, I feel like generational trauma can also affect, you know, fibroids. And I myself, I've always known that how trauma can affect you. And none of us are going to get through life. It can cause Alzheimer's and dementia, yeah. You can't get through life, none of us can get through life without some type of trauma, right? And so we have to have tools to be able to dissolve that and dispel it. And the things that I've always used has been my eggs, and I actually have fallen off of my egg practice, you know, because there were years where I always had eggs. I was always working with eggs. I had 2-3 eggs in me at once, and I was on it. But there are times that I have to remember to come back to that, because it really does help to center you and balance you and transform that stuff. And then the dancing for me, people think that I'm joking when I say that dancing is healing for me. It helps to keep me sane and balanced. And so when I share videos on social media where I'm dancing in a bikini, like, and I'm not doing that because I'm like, oh, I'm trying to get attention, I'm trying to seduce people. No, I dance. Now, when I'm dancing on Instagram, I'm doing a very small percentage of the dancing that I do, because I do study Afro-Brazilian stuff. I study Haitian folklore. Going to a Haitian folklore dance class is like going to goddamn basketball practice, okay? Like, the shit is very intense, okay? The Congolese stuff that my friend had, you know, her and her crew did in Detroit, which is a lot. You know, the Congo, Black dance in the Americas is heavily influenced by the Congo. The Congo has the greatest influence on Black dance in the Americas, okay? So Afro-Brazilian samba, straight Congo. Samba y capoeira. Bomba, bomba from Puerto Rico. They say has a Congo influence. I don't really see it all the time unless it's the one from Melissa. But merengue from Dominican Republic, straight Congo. Then the Dominican also have palos and congos, like another type of rhythm. Then you got the Haitian folklore. All those movements. Haitians got the dance of the dead called banda. They have another serpent dance called yambulu. All that stuff is straight Congolese, even when the deities are not, right? Then Jamaican dancehall, straight Congolese. Afro-Cuban rumba, straight Congolese. In New Orleans, you got Congo Square, okay? You got champeta in Colombia. Champeta is Congolese soukous, okay? And for those who know, like Afrobeats is a big thing now, but soukous is even more badass. Nobody dances better than the Congolese. And champeta, soukous, okay? So the Congo had the greatest influence on Black popular dance in the Americas. And all of that is a bunch of intense hip circles and hip gyrating and, the chest, all of this, okay? The feet, the head, the whole body, undulating, shaking, gyrating, okay? And I don't, for me, I have a background in Western science, but I'm a huge believer and supporter of indigenous science. And I always say that Western science doesn't confirm anything that indigenous people didn't already know. It never does. I feel like Western scientists are trying to figure out what the indigenous people were doing and how they knew this and how they're using this herb, but why? What's in that herb? What's the active ingredient in that herb that's helping them with this? But they already knew that. You know what I'm saying? Without the laboratories and the studies, they knew it, and they've been practicing it for generations. So when you see something that somebody's been practicing for generations and they've been healthy and they haven't had these problems, well, there's your answer of what we need to do. There's the answer. It's not you know what I'm saying? Like, to me, it's just common sense to a degree, right? But I'm just saying, this fibroid issue, and there's a lot of Afrocentric Black people who are saying you have to be a vegan if you have fibroids. But if you're a vegan, all you're doing is eating sugar and sugar, grains, carbohydrates. You don't have the really important fats you need that also will help to shrink those tumors. You don't have high quality iron, which women who have bad fibroids and they're bleeding heavy, they're very anemic. The best quality iron is in animal foods. You know what I'm saying? Vitamin D, the highest source of vitamin D is in liver. Okay, and I don't care where you come from in the world. If you're of a certain age, you were given liver. Okay, and other organ meats too, but liver was on everybody's list. Okay, liver is just the highest source of vitamin D. But then you have cod liver oil. Okay, which again, if you're of a certain age, I don't care where you're from in the world, somebody's giving you cod liver oil at night. Okay, so and that's another one that's very high in vitamin D and vitamin A. Then you have fish eggs, you have shellfish, you have grass-fed butter and ghee. Pork fat, okay? Pork fat is actually a very good source of vitamin D and vitamin A, which go together, okay? And these traditional foods that we've been shunned to eat. Oh, don't eat liver, it has too much cholesterol. Don't eat eggs, it has too much cholesterol. Don't eat pork, it's bad for you, it's a dirty animal. Oh, don't drink milk. All of those things are the things that's high in vitamin D and vitamin A, all things we're being told not to consume. Um, and somebody just shared that they're noticing a difference from the cod liver oil that I recommended. If you want to share what that difference was, feel free. If you want to jump in the conversation, lady, and if you want to jump in the conversation and add some 2 cents, feel free to do that too. If you want to, if you don't, it's fine. But yeah, cod liver oil, and I consume a fermented cod liver oil. But really, we store trauma in our wombs. So I've had to deal, as a practitioner who works with people, but then I'm also, I lead by example. And I feel like I can't be teaching people about health and I'm not working on my own health and my own self and trying to understand what's going on with me. And I've never been diagnosed with fibroids, and I'm scared of that because I don't ever want to have fibroids. So I've always practiced prevention, right? But when you look at the stats, that 75% of women end up with it at some point. That's pretty scary. You know what I'm saying? That almost makes it seem like it's inevitable. And it's like, I definitely don't, want that. So if I'm starting to see things in my body where I'm like, I don't know what's going on. Let's just get to the prevention first. And the things that's going to castor oil packs is critical, is all I'm going to say. Castor oil packs. The castor oil packs have other applications outside of, women using them for womb health. They have other applications in that. Like my dad his knee was hurting, so I put a castor oil pack on his knee. Then my dad had something wrong with his shoulder, because that's a whole other story I'm not going to get into. I'll do it on my OnlyFans page where I get into my case studies. So I'm not going to get into what was wrong with his shoulder. But basically, he had a frozen shoulder, and I put castor oil patches on my dad's shoulder. And that was the one thing that started to help his shoulder. When he told the doctor, they were like, no, I don't. And it happened because of something they did to him, and they wouldn't give him any help or advice. And the doctor actually told my dad, ask your daughter, which is crazy. But actually was good advice, because I could give him better advice than they could at the end of the day. Okay, so you said you've been taking the cod liver oil. It's only been a couple of weeks, but you have more energy during the day with better clarity and restful sleep overnight. Well, thank you for sharing that. I'm really glad to hear that. Because castor oil is high in vitamin D and vitamin A, and the long chain omega-3 fats, which are very potent anti-inflammatories. Okay, and very important for your brain health. Okay, and I could get into a whole, I'm not going to get too scientific on here. I try to not bore people to death for giving the information they need, but I'm just going to say that insects, and this has come up again in a class I'm taking right now. I'm taking a class on the genomics and pharmacology. Okay, you probably never heard that word before. Not pharmacology, pharmacology of cannabis. Okay, and you know, so in this class, you know, we just finished going through, you know, certain pathways of, I don't want to get too scientific, but like there's something called COX-2 inhibitors, which are they're anti-inflammatory drugs that inhibit an enzyme called COX-2. And I've always known that COX-2 inhibitors are not good. And we just went through that in one of my classes, like the COX-1, COX-2 inhibitors. But the omega-3s, okay, are very potent anti-inflammatories without blocking your COX enzymes, which actually help you heal. You don't want to block your COX-1 and COX-2 enzymes because they actually play a role in helping you to heal, okay? But when people take these anti-inflammatories that inhibit that, yeah, it might bring the pain down, inflammation, but it's actually stopping your body from healing. Whereas like the long-chain omega-3 fats is in the cod oil, not fish oil, okay? Do not take fish oil. Fish oil is poison. Cod oil, okay? Those omega-3s are very potent anti-inflammatories and can also contribute to shrinking fibroids and things like that, okay? So I'm just going to leave that there. I think I've been talking enough. I'm glad my friend had shared what she shared. I do think that when it comes to womb health, matriz concha health, that the eggs play a very important role because people have, you know, a lot of people have trauma that, you know, they store in their body. It affects their health. It affects their womb. You got the castor oil packs, very, very important. The vaginal steaming, which in Mesoamerican Mexican tradition is called Bajos, but many cultures have them. Like all my Haitian friends, I would always hear that their grandmother made them do it after birth, right? Which is interesting because the way I learned it from Mesoamerican tradition is not supposed to be used right after birth or when you're actively bleeding. But Haitians did do that. Um, um, One of my Nigerian friends, he told me, like, you don't, I feel like it might be, I don't know, my African friends, okay, because there's many countries in Africa, over 50. So you can tell me, and not just my African friends, I don't care where you're from in the world. If you know of a tradition of steaming with herbs, vaginal steaming, just please share it, okay? Just sharing is caring. But I do know one of my Nigerian friends told me that he remembers seeing that, like, but it's not so much out in the open like that. But I just know that and when you go to the Korean bathhouses, I don't know how to pronounce it, but they have that, they offer it. And you have a lot of people now who are like yoni steam practitioners. You don't need that. You can do it at home, and it should be a regular part of your matriz concha health, your womb and vaginal health. Okay, so the eggs, the steams, because again, this is connecting to my education right now, right? That there are volatile oils, essential oils in these herbs. And so when you steam them, okay, the volatile oils, and I remember when Pakistani explained this. Pakistani Indigimama, she never spent a single day in a university, not one day. Never took a science class, never took an anatomy class, never took a physiology class. But the things that she explains is scientifically sound. And she could go talk to a medical doctor and it's scientifically sound. And so I remember she said the volatile oils in the herbs, you know, they come through the steam, then they come up in the woman's vaginal canal and they get up into the uterus. So this is one of the ways, like if a woman is trying to use herbs for uterine issues, yeah, you can drink teas and go ahead, but you also want to do the vaginal steams because again, the mucous membrane is very absorbent, okay? So the vaginal muscles are the most absorbent tissues in the body. So now you have the essential oils from this steam, you know, coming up in there and getting into your uterus and helping whatever it is that you're doing. Like if you have fibroids, you got cysts, you have some type of trauma, fertility issues, whatever. Like you use different herbs depending on what you're using it for. But this tradition too, it can pull things out of you. So the combination of the castor oil packs, the vaginal steaming, the clays, working with the eggs, But I meant to ask my friend Hemp about the oil that her friend used on the egg that got rid of the fibroids. She said it was hemp and cannabis oil. I mean, hemp and coconut oil. But I wonder if that had any THC in it or if it was CBD or what it was. But all of those things, cannabis and cannabis infused coconut oil is very good for